Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking on the video. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And today, we're talking about the biggest vote out so far, the Shan blindside. Obviously, there's so many implications. There's so much that went into it. Such a complicated vote. A lot of strategy. We're going to go through the whole episode in depth. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving yesterday. Hopefully, your stuffing was good, and hopefully, the food tasted even better now that Shan's gone. I'm just kidding. Obviously, on this channel, we've had our gripes with Shan, but I can respect her, like the fact that she brought a lot to the season. But what I will say is that her blind side is definitely the biggest one of the season, not really based off strategy, but just based off of the gravity of who she was as a character, being on the screen for so much, especially in this pre-merge. So let's get into it. But first, 72% of you guys who are watching these videos are not subscribed. Let's change that. It's easy and it's free. And if that's it, let's get right into the video. Okay, so this episode opens up with the Evie vote out cohort. I'm calling them that cohort. Really, the Deshawn, Danny, Liana, and Xander, who are still left, who voted out Evie there. They come back and they have so many questions about the Nasir blindside, being that the Evie vote out was kind of obvious, as Evie had been in the bottom for a long time. And so they're like, oh my god, okay, what happened? Like, how did Nasir go home? Not only just period, but with an idol in his pocket, which adds a whole another layer to it. And Shan takes all of the credit for the move. Well, really, it's Shan and Ricard talk about how they blindsided Nasir and how Shan used the extra vote and then put like one vote on Heather and one on Nasir, and really just raised her threat level here. I think especially because of the fact that they were already kind of looking at her, but then after she kind of gloats about this move, it makes it even more worse for her game overall, in my personal opinion. It's at this point that we then see Deshawn go off with, I believe, was Erica, and talks about possibly gunning for Shan, especially after Shan put that target on her back by explaining out the Nasir blindside in great detail with her extra vote play and everything. And then we get a confessional from Shan where she's like, I saw Deshawn going off with Erica. I'm worried about him possibly gunning for me. And so we see that Shan knows that Deshawn's coming for her, but she's still staying cautious and not freaking out or being, just 100% just like, oh, I'm safe 100%. She knows, but she can't really put her finger on exactly if it's gonna be now, later, or ever. In the morning, we see Shan and Deshawn have a very like a heart-to-heart talk about whether to keep the four together, and they're referencing, and I wasn't a big fan of this. I thought it was pretty cringy, but they're referencing like doing it quote unquote for the culture. So they were like, do we flip on each other, or do we do it quote unquote for the culture? The culture being for Black people. Because the Camp Out Alliance is an all-Black alliance, so they're saying, do we all go to the end and possibly mess up our own individual games by losing to each other at the end, or do we play our individual games and have a better shot to win? At least we think we do. And they're both very conflicted as to whether or not to play for themselves or quote unquote for the culture. I'm doing air quotes right now. I mean, I think it's a pretty easy option there. I don't know who would do it quote unquote for the culture, but I definitely would not be in that crowd. And during this conversation, we can see that both Deshawn and Shan are very wary of each other, and they can kind of both see that each other are gunning for each other, if that even makes any sense. They just don't know if it's happening now, if it's happening later, or if it's ever going to happen. And I feel like they know that there's going to be a big blindside coming up, and they just both think that they're going to be fine, or at least make it through. And one of them was obviously wrong in this case and scenario. Then we go to a reward challenge, which you like go to like this island and they give you some food or something, and you like get blankets and stuff. It's pretty cool. It was very, very forgettable, put it that way. But we do this reward challenge where Ricard wins, and in this tribe of I believe it's 8. Is it 7 or 8? No, it's 8. Okay, so during the episode it was 8. So in this tribe of 8, Ricard has to pick 3 other people, meaning that 4 people will go on reward and 4 will stay back at camp. And Ricard takes Shan, Xander, and Heather He takes Shan because obviously Shan's his number one ally at this point. He takes Xander because he stepped down to get rice for the tribe, and I don't know why he really takes Heather. I really don't know why at all, but yeah, okay. On this reward, we kind of see that like there's kind of like two pairs who group off and have conversations on their own. We hear one of those pairs conversations a lot more. We see that Heather and Xander are talking, like just like making small talk, but then right next to them, Xander and or not Xander, or Ricard and Shan are kind of having like their own conversations that are much more important. And they're talking about the possibility of eventually having to flip on each other, and that they do not want to go to the end with each other. Ricard says he doesn't want to go to the end because Shan has played a better game, and Shan says she doesn't want to go to the end with Ricard because a man will always beat a woman, at least in her opinion. I think that's absolute BS. We've seen women go head to head in Final Tribal and beat men. I think that's very, very shallow-minded, but that's how she feels. And so they both don't want to go to the end with each other. And it seems to me like they're both willing to flip each other, and honestly, like, whereas Deshawn and Shan aren't as vocal about it, Ricard and Shan are very vocal that they're both going to flip on each other, but they both agree that not now, like not this round, not soon. Later on is when we'll flip on each other later on. Back at camp, after Danny and Deshawn lose the challenge, they want to go for Ricard because of his challenge prowess, as he just won a challenge. He also is going to win the immunity challenge later on, and so they were right about that. So they want to go for Ricard because of his challenge prowess and because he's super likable, and that him winning these rewards and taking the entire future jury members to be on these rewards is really good for his social game. But what they're really doing when they go for Ricard is weakening Shan. They really want to weaken Shan, but they don't want to vote her out because she's a great ally to have, because she is such a good strategical player. And so they want Shan to be cut off at the knees, where Shan has no one to go to after Ricard gets blindsided, hypothetically, except for Deshawn, Danny, and Liana. And so they actually let Liana in on this plan. Big mistake. So as they're telling her, it kind of cuts to a confessional of her saying that she is not down to blindside Shan, especially after their very emotional hilltop, like, little crying scene where they, bonded over their mothers and that stuff, like that whole heartfelt scene. I think after that, or I don't think, she said, like, out loud that she will not flip on Shan, even if it means that she goes to the end and loses to Shan. This is a big statement by Liana to want to throw away her entire game because of a 2-day friendship. No, but like, I mean, I that's her prerogative. But yeah, so we end up getting Liana telling them, yeah, I'm down, but we hear from Liana that she is not down for this plan at all. And so we do see Liana then go tell Shan after Shan gets back from reward. And she does this, of course, in a fit of tears. She is crying. And she's basically saying, like, I don't care what people say. I don't care what anybody thinks. And I think she's referencing, like, the audience, like the viewers. If anyone's going to judge her for doing this, she says that she does not care and that this is beyond personal for her. Like, this now goes into personal stuff for her. I'm okay. So that's how Liana feels. Shan then goes and tells Ricard this because they're all back from the reward. And Shan tells Ricard that both Deshawn and Danny are now gunning for him, and that the new plan is going to be something like her being Shan, Liana, Ricard, Xander, going for like maybe a Deshawn, and that's kind of like the plan right now. And Ricard has a very weird answer to this, which is very important in the episode. And Ricard says, I'm just surprised that you would tell me, because I figured we were going to gun for each other eventually. And Shan's like, yeah, of course. I mean, you're my ally. And Ricard's like, okay. And so at this point, I feel like in Ricard's head, he's realizing that Shan's guard is down and that Shan is not worried about him going after her right now, which is the perfect time to then go after her because she's not also going after him. I think in this moment when Shan told Ricard that they're gunning for you, I'm gonna help you out, and we'll get through this. Ricard saw Shan's guard down, and Ricard was saying, okay, perfect time to now go for her while she's not expecting it and while she's actually trying to save me from going home. And so at this point, it is a civil war where it's Danny and Deshawn really versus Shan and Liana, with extra pieces on the chessboard being brought into each side. At the immunity challenge, it comes down to Ricard and Xander, and Ricard does win. He beats out Xander in a duel with, the whole holding the balls on the platform. He beats Xander here, which is super duper impressive considering that Xander's very, very good physically, and it really establishes Ricard as an even bigger threat. But because he's won immunity, the plan by Deshawn and Danny to get Ricard out is now gone. It's in thin air. It's gone now. And it's at this point, after the Deshawn and Danny plan was foiled, that Ricard actually goes to Deshawn and has a conversation with Deshawn. And in Ricard's confessional, while he's talking to Deshawn, he's telling us that he knows that Deshawn came for him and that he would have gone home if he didn't win immunity, but he still wants to work with Deshawn to get out Shan. And he says that he can, like, quote unquote, get like Deshawn out tomorrow, but Shan needs to go right now. And then at this point, with both Deshawn and Ricard now on board to go after Shan, we now get them pulling in Danny. And then from this point, after it's both Deshawn, Danny, and Ricard as like the main people who are pushing for this Shan blindside, they also get Heather and Erica, who are like the two people that are kind of on the bottom in their plan as well. Heather and Erica are kind of fishing for like maybe like who can go here. And when they hear about the Shan plan, they are fully on board. And so now it is 6 people. It's Heather, Erica, Deshawn, Xander, Danny, and Deshawn, all going after Shan, and really Liana as well, because Liana's now glued to Shan because of her, it's personal for me, like that whole mindset by Liana. Now it is 6 versus these 2 girls in Liana and Shan. But this is where it gets interesting. So now that the Ricard plan is foiled because Ricard won immunity, in Shan's head, she's thinking, okay, well now Deshawn and Danny, now that they can't go for Ricard, they're just going to go back to our original plan of keeping the camp out strong and voting out like an Erica or a Heather. And so Shan and Liana now switch their plan from going after Deshawn to now going after Erica instead. And Erica knows this. Erica knows that they are going to be putting votes on her, and so it's going to be 6 votes, probably Shan, and then 2 on Erica. So Shan plays her idol for herself, or if they all put if they all vote for Liana and then Shan plays her idol for Liana, then that would leave Erica as the person who would go home with 2 votes in a 2-0 vote, because the 6 votes would be negated by the idol. And so to avoid that, Erica now adds to this plan with a possible split vote, meaning a 3-3 vote, 3 on Liana, 3 on Shan, and then Shan and Liana's 2 votes will not matter. And so while Shan thinks that this blindside is now put on hold because Ricard won immunity, it's not put on hold. It's just been switched to her instead of Ricard. Instead of going for the right-hand man, now they're just going for the queen herself, Shan. Except they're not only going for Shan, now they're splitting the vote 3-3, 3 on Liana, 3 on Shan, and then Shan's 2 votes who are probably going to be for Erica. That is a 3-3-2 vote. On the revote, probably Shan going home, but you never know. And so we go into Tribal at this point, really just not knowing what's going to happen. And so at Tribal, the Shan and Liana split vote executed, and I'll give Erica credit here, by only Erica. Like, Erica makes this plan, talks to everyone, and then implements the plan perfectly. And it goes off without a hitch, 3-3-2. And then on the revote, it is not even close. It's 6 votes straight in a row, all for Shan. And so Shan, who had thought that because Ricard won immunity, that they went back to their original plan of keeping the camp out safe, that now she's going home with an idol in her pocket, and she's the 4th member of the jury. And on her way out, after she gets 6-0'd on the re-vote, she calls Deshawn a snake, and she says that Ricard has her vote for $1 million, which I don't know why you would say that if you want somebody to win, because then that puts even more of a jury target on their back. Now that Ricard also has a challenge target and a social target and a strategical target. There we go. that's an actual word. Now he also has a jury target on his back as well, and he could be looked at as a jury threat. Terrible move by Shan if she actually does want to help Ricard out in the game. And so in the end, I feel like this episode was an overall pretty good episode. I'll actually look up the ratings to see how it did right now live. And so, oh wow, okay, so I'm very surprised. Okay, so at episode 10, we had the lowest viewers that we've ever had in Survivor history, because obviously with this season it's the lowest viewership period, and then this is the lowest of this season, meaning that this is the least viewed episode of Survivor ever, with 5.228 million viewers. It went down 9.31% viewership wise, and then the demographic of 18 to 49 went down 4.26%. So as much as this episode may have had like a pretty crazy like blindside with it, oh, it's like the biggest character going home, ratings went down for this episode. So I think this is honestly a case of too little too late. Like, this season had its bad moments in episodes 2, 3, and 6 kind of, I feel like, were the down episodes. Also the Heather going nuts at tribal episode, that one was also pretty boring. The Tiffany boot. So I do think that overall, if there was a negative for this season, it's that is very inconsistent of the season. I feel like this season doesn't have much consistency. I feel like there's at most a good like 2 episode stretch, and then there's always like a bad episode at some point. So I do feel like overall that this like for 42, they need to come up with a more consistent strategy for making the season better, and not having like 2 good episodes and then like 2 bad ones, or like two good and then 1 bad, or just good bad, because that's not good for ratings, because people don't like, after like the 3rd bad episode of the season, people are not going to come back, and so I do feel like if they need to, if they don't want to stay on the air, they have to be more consistent about things in the show, and whether you're going to make a very, very good stretch of episodes, or have like maybe 1 outlier, but you cannot have bad stretches of episodes like 2 and 3 or 6, or I think it was 8 or 9 was kind of meh. So I do feel like if like they need to figure out why these ratings are going down and then up and then down, but like consistently going down like over time. Like, the season started at 6.2, almost 5 million viewers, and right now it's at its lowest ever, and it's at 5.228 million viewers. It went down from start of the season to now. It went down a full million viewers have now left since the start of the season. 1 million people. Just for reference, my state that I live in has 3 million people in it. A third of my state has now stopped watching the show, hypothetically. That's an insane prospect to me. So I do think that if Survivor wants to continue to pull in these impressive, consistent numbers, they need more impressive, consistent content. And as far as the season goes so far, I do think that at this point, I think the people who had the really any shot to win are Ricard. I don't know about Ricard. So I feel like Ricard could be our winner up, or sorry, our runner up here, because I think that Ricard's chance to get a big winners edit has kind of passed at this point. We didn't get much content from him in the pre-merge or in the very early post-merge. We really only started to get content from him after like that papaya fight with Shan, and that's like an episode ago. Like, so I don't know. It's like, how can you say that he has a winner's edit when he literally doesn't even really have an edit up until like episode 8 or 9? Like, I feel like that's just not good enough to be able to say, hey, like, he is the winner of this season 100%. I mean, he still has a shot. Like, there's been crazier winner edits, so I'm still putting him in that, like, in the group of like, you have a shot to win the game. And so the other people in that group are, so it's Ricard, it's Erica. I feel like has at this point has a shot. I feel like Ricard and Erica are like on the same level, where their edits are like a little meh, and to the point where I feel like it's almost impossible for them to win, but they could win. The people who I'm more confident like that like have an actually decent shot at winning is Xander, is Deshawn. I feel like anybody besides that, I'm looking at them and I'm like, nah. Like, Heather, no way. Liana, no way. Heather because of her edit, and Liana because of her spot in the game. There's no way that Liana makes it to the end. So I think Liana's going soon. I think Heather is probably has not like that, doesn't have as good enough as or of an edit to really be considered here. And then I do think that probably I don't know. I think Xander probably beats a lot of people at the end, but it really depends on if he can get his Yase members' votes. Because if he can't even get Yase votes, I feel like he has no shot. He needs at least Evie and Tiffany's vote. He probably needs like Nasir's vote as well. So like really like those first three jury members in chronological order, being Evie, Nasir, and Tiffany. Those like first three, they need to all vote for Xander to really have a shot. Because because it's a jury of 8, so if Xander walks into final tribal and he has 3 votes already locked in, then he really just has to win 1. Because I feel like most third placers like Heather or Erica would pick Xander over like for an example a Deshawn, or a Danny or something like that. So I think if Xander can pull in those first 3 jury members, I think he's almost guaranteed to win the season, because then he only has to flip 1 more vote from there, and even if it's a tie, the third place finisher will probably vote for him. That's it, guys. The podcast will be coming out Sunday on all platforms, meaning YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you haven't checked out the live show and you want to watch it in podcast form, it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts right now. Again, none of this happens without you guys. I'm just a weird guy speaking into a microphone. And if that's so, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.